This is Tara Shapansky from the Polish-American Brotherhood and Adam Francisco from Be Free My Sheeple. And you're listening to the T&A Show, the Tara and Adam Show. Well, hey there, boys and girls, ladies and gents, theys and theirs. This is Tara Shapansky from the Polish-American Brotherhood and Adam Francisco from Be Free My Sheeple. And you're listening to the T&A Show, the Tara and Adam Show. Well, hey there, boys and girls, ladies and gents, theys and theirs. This is Tara Shapansky from the Polish-American Brotherhood and Adam Francisco from Be Free My Sheeple. And you're listening to the T&A Show, the Tara and Adam Show. Well, hey there, boys and girls, ladies and gents, theys and theirs. This is Tara Shapansky from the Polish-American Brotherhood and Adam Francisco from Be Free My Sheeple. And you're listening to the T&A Show, the Tara and Adam Show.
Welcome back to the T&A Show. This is episode 19 of season 2. And today we have Amanda Makki for Congress on our show. And just to give you guys a little background, I met Amanda at a at a pro-life rally in downtown St. Petersburg a couple of weeks ago. And she was a fantastic speaker. I was really inspired by the ideas and thoughts that she brought to the table, as well as a story that she shared about, I guess you could say, a victim of abortion. So we wanted to bring Amanda Makki on and kind of get to know her background today. So Amanda, thank you so much for coming onto our show. We really appreciate having you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Awesome. Great to have you. So I wanted to kick things off because I was reading through your story on your website, amandamakki.com, and it looks like you have a really awesome story. Like as an infant, it looks like you escaped Iran with your family from, as you call it, oppressive regime, religious regime. I'd love to kind of hear about that a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. I love to tell the story because it really is the story of the American dream. My family and I escaped when I was 11 months old, and we left Iran. Iran became a brutal dictatorial regime run by religious mullahs in 1979. And prior to that, it was a monarchy. And I always like to remind people that this country went from a monarchy, a king and a queen, to a religious dictatorship in 15 days. So socialism can happen overnight. We escaped with nothing. I mean, we fled. And my father was a surgeon in Iran, but he came here and he couldn't even get a job as a busboy. In fact, he went to a Chinese food restaurant to get a job there. And the owner said, I can't hire you. You're a foreigner. And those are the kinds of things that my father had to deal with because, of course, at the time you had the hostage crisis for 444 days. The religious zealots had taken our hostages. And so there was, it was very challenging for me and my family. But my mother, she delivered yellow pages and she put my father through school so he could get his training. And he ultimately became a surgeon. He's a surgeon to this day. And, you know, it doesn't matter what your last name is. It doesn't matter who you are. If you want to work hard, it used to be the case that you work hard, you get ahead. But now with all these government programs that are there and, you know, the government constantly wanting to give handouts, this is not the America that I grew up in. This is not the American dream stories that we're so used to hearing. Things are changing before us. And, you know, my family and I came here and succeeded. I remember when I wanted to get into politics, my dad was like, well, you don't know anybody. You don't have connections. We don't have connections. And that's really the great thing about America is you don't have to. I mean, you work hard and you'll get there. And I did. I worked hard and we ultimately made it.
That's absolutely incredible story. And it's similar to, I know Tara's father also escaped communism, right, Tara?
Yes, my dad is communist refugee coming in from Poland. And so his life was very much the American dream. And so my family, my father and I are also walkaways from the Democrat Party. And I asked Dad, why is it that we were Democrats our whole life? And he said, because we thought we were the good guys. But now it just seems like they're just trying to make us hate America. So that's why Adam and I even started the T&A Show and started being vocal about conservative values.
Yep. And Amanda, you know, it's interesting. Tara and I, at one point in our lives, we were pro-choicers. You know, I believed that a woman had a right to choose to do with her body what she wanted. And, you know, it was only after many years of self-reflection and experience that I've personally had. One guy, you were talking on stage about a man named Shane Corey, who lost his child, Baby Moon. We're actually interviewing him. We're having a chat with him on Thursday, and it came from our conversation with you from the rally that we went to. But I had something of a similar experience. I guess that's the first time I'm revealing that to the world today, and that really woke me up and made me become pro-life. So I really appreciate that. You know, you're in those views. In terms of your political career, what motivated you? Tell us your story. How you decided to run for Congress.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I wanted to be in politics, and my father, you know, was like, you're not you don't have a family dynasty, and those are the people that get jobs in politics. And I worked hard. You know, I worked hard. I volunteered. I campaigned. I worked for free. I traveled for campaigns, and I never got paid. I just did it because I was such a believer in Republican values. And I remember being 10 years old in 1988. My father said, sit here and watch the Republican convention. You have to understand what politics is about. My mom's like, can she just play with like dolls and be like a normal kid? And my dad's like, no, this is really important for her to understand politics. And that's when I started to learn. And especially if you ask Iranian people, what happened to Iran? As I mentioned, in 15 days, it went from, just a wonderful country where people wanted to go travel to, a well-resourced country with abundance of natural resources, a very well-educated population. And basically you look at what happened there, and a lot of Iranians and a lot of people in general will say it is failed foreign policies that got Iran to be where it is today. Now it is actually the country we fear the most in the Middle East, when before we had a strong relationship with its leaders, and that's really important. Failed foreign policy has gotten us here. And the tinderbox that we've created with Jimmy Carter, starting with Jimmy Carter back in 1979, is really where a lot of Iranians believe those failed policies are why we're here today. So that's one of the reasons why you have a lot of Iranians that are conservatives and are Republicans. But what really drove me to politics was obviously I was inspired by leaders in the Republican Party, but also just to be able to make wholesale changes to our country's laws, where you see inequities, where you see things that are wrong. To be able to do that is what really drove me to be in politics. Being a native Farsi speaker, my first job was at the Pentagon just weeks after 9/11.
Wow.
It was a really important language skill to have. And I was able to, give back to my country, a country that has given so much. And I did that right after 9/11. And then I went on to work in Congress. I was in the healthcare space, and my background is as a healthcare attorney. That's what I'm trained in. And during Obamacare, we pushed back and we fought to stop Obamacare. Now, before all of this, I worked in my father's office. As I mentioned, he's a doctor, and I managed his office. So I really understood healthcare and the insurance industry well. So working with members of Congress when I was there during Obamacare, I knew that Obamacare was going to be a failure because all you were doing was bolstering the insurance companies. What did Obamacare do? It forced everyone to buy health insurance, and then it subsidized the health insurance industry. The insurance industry makes money and more money because our tax dollars go to making sure everyone gets insurance, and they have to buy it no matter the cost. So, it was interesting to work in Congress during that time. But I think really what was the most inspiring thing for me is the ability to make wholesale changes, especially from someone like myself. I didn't come here on the my family didn't come here on the Mayflower. We're immigrants to this country, and when you look at what's happening right now with illegals coming to our country,
Yep.
I mean, my family, what a slap in the face to people who waited their turn.
Yeah, that's well said. We actually attended a protest yesterday here in Maitland. There were some rumors online that 4 busloads of illegal immigrants were dropped off to one of the extended stay Americas. So we showed up yesterday to do some investigative journalism, and it turns out there was actually like a mini rally there. A lot of protesters were there, and it was pretty powerful stuff to see a lot of Americans stepping up and peacefully protesting. I want to talk about healthcare for a little bit, because that's definitely a topic that affects, I think, all Americans right now. Unless you're the elite and you're super wealthy, then costs obviously don't have an impact. But I know personally, healthcare has been such an issue. For me, I remember when I was paying for my own healthcare out of pocket, it was like $650 a month or something like that. That's a lot of money to be putting towards healthcare. So, and this was after Obamacare. $650 a month is crazy. So yeah. I do agree with you that the system is broken here in a lot of ways, and we got to definitely.
I just got Chinese healthcare.
Did you?
Yeah, because it's actually affordable and a lot better than American healthcare. And even before Obamacare, the CCP had a lot better healthcare with a more affordable price.
That's it. Yeah. So this random guy that just popped up on the show is Grayson Arnold. He's our honorary co-host for now, and he's basically our fact guy. He comes in with a lot of facts. He lived in China for 5 years.
Yeah, the American healthcare system's just been broken for decades. It's not a new thing with Obamacare. Obamacare was just a political ploy so they could implement some sort of more totalitarian control. It's just one step to a bigger means.
Seems like you guys are on the same page. Inflation, that's obviously another hot topic today besides healthcare. And obviously inflation is absolutely out of control. What kind of power do you think we have, you guys as potential politicians serving the people, and us, like what can we do to fight this Joe Biden inflation that we have right now?
Well, look, 39-year high of inflation rates. We're looking at 1982 was the last time we saw inflation rates this high. It's very scary for people who live on a fixed income, especially people in the district that I'm hoping to represent in Congress. You have a lot of people who are retirees, and yes, some are wealthy, some are well-to-do, some have investments, but a lot live in 55 and over communities. They might live in mobile home parks, and they basically are living on one check that they're having to make it stretch a lot more than they have in the past. We have experienced the highest rate of growth of costs in the entire country. The Tampa Bay area, now it's not the most expensive, but it is the highest growth rate in the country of any metropolitan area. And so when you think about people who came here because it's affordable, they are now experiencing something of a shock when it comes to rent. When it comes to the price of gas, our fuel prices have gone up 60% year over year. Yep. And so these things are very real. And I always, when I worked in Congress, I'd always say when a bill came before me, hey, would you co-sponsor this bill? And I'd say, if it's not something that people can easily understand, then, it really is hard to articulate why this is important. Well, inflation and hyperinflation, very easy to understand. Everything costs more, everything. Yep. And that's if you can get it. So this has become a huge issue for people in this community. And I'd say the biggest thing is obviously the cost of fuel, but the cost of rent. When you see people having to pay $500 or $600 more for a one-bedroom apartment, and they're calling me and others and saying, what can we do about it? Well, the reality is you can't really do anything about it. But what has also compounded this in particular, I believe, is the eviction moratorium that occurred for over a year, where homeowners were basically, their hands were tied. And they told their tenants, when the government says you don't have to pay, what are they going to do about it?
Yeah, that's so crazy to me that Joe Biden basically told renters that they could pretty much just stop paying rent for many, many months. And I bet my guess is a lot of people could have afforded it, but when they were given that green light by Joe Biden not to pay rent, a lot of them probably took advantage of that situation.
I know I
Well,
would.
Right?
Yeah.
the most insulting thing about that was that it wasn't even Joe Biden, it was the CDC. Like,
Right.
what role does the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have in telling people don't pay your rent? I mean, that's outrageous. So, when you think about the rights of property owners that they basically like dissolve. They're like, yeah, whatever. It's your house, but you don't need to pay rent. And I can't tell you how many people were calling me to complain. What do I do? I have a tenant who just says every day that like someone else in his or her family has COVID. And so, they didn't even have to say that. People just said it because they probably felt guilty for not paying rent.
Right. Tara, you gonna say something?
Oh yeah, no, I was just thinking of because my family and I are also into the rental business. So when you don't have your tenants paying your rent, we're still on the hook for paying off mortgages and paying that off. So it's not like mortgages are put on hold. So it's just coming from the tenant's perspective, but then we still have to be making the payments to the mortgages. Otherwise, that'll default. So I don't feel like they're looking at the long term of what effects this is going to be having, but they're just trying to really do just the handouts that we were saying, that this is now becoming the America of handing things out, and it's going to put us all in it at risk.
Yep.
Well, and it's the law of takings. That's what they're doing in essence. It's like eminent domain. It's basically saying, we're going to take your property rights from you. Although they're not saying that, that's in effect what's happening. You're not allowing people to collect or use that property in a way that they had intended to. And that's really what's so wrong with the Biden administration, is that laws don't seem to apply. They don't really care about the laws because the progressive base is so strong. Now, remember when they had the members of the squad were sleeping in sleeping bags outside of the Capitol, protesting that how dare the government not reinstate the eviction moratorium. I mean, It's just crazy. And so this is where you have one party control of the country that's destroying the country and people's property rights and ownership rights.
Yeah, the left has done a lot of silly things in the past couple years, including their vigil for January 6th, which I thought was really weird when Joe Biden didn't even do a vigil for Afghanistan, the 13 fallen soldiers. I thought that was really interesting. I know.
How about a vigil for all these police officers that we have, these fallen police officers, because DAs refuse to prosecute and the president refuses to hold anyone accountable who's in that role. Kamala Harris, you were a DA. How come you're not saying anything?
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, I'm looking at what happened, what's happening in places like New York City, which are about as blue as you can get in this country. And, just last week, we lost two NYPD officers that were shot and killed responding to a domestic violence in Harlem. And, I just fear that with this new mentality of anti-police and anti-law and order, that's all coming from the progressive left.
A lot of it's from the right as well. I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. It was the police who enforced the lockdowns. It was the police who enforced the mask mandates. And we still see people losing their businesses. We see a child that was arrested in New York by the police for not wearing a mask. So it's really, there's something going on of where eventually it's going to reach a point where the police cannot say I was just following orders as their excuse.
Well, so that's a very good point. And I think that leads into the topic of stopping these lockdowns and mandates. I know that's another one
which was started under President Trump as well. I'm going to vote for Trump in 2024, but we got to tell the truth. President Trump was the one who presided over Operation Warp Speed. He's the one who presided over getting everybody the vaccine in the beginning, taking out all the safety controls. Usually a vaccine takes about a decade to get to market. And then he was the one who presided over the nationwide lockdowns. He was a president. He could have unilaterally made decisions regarding that. And it's unfortunate that he was surrounded with so many backstabbers that he did not.
It's all good points. So Amanda, what do you think about the lockdowns and the mandates? We're seeing now a lot of other countries like England and Ireland have completely lifted all passports, all mask mandates. How is America quote unquote, the freest country on the planet, watching these other countries go before us in terms of more freedom. What do you think we need to do to get this country back on track?
We need to stand up to this regime. I mean, that's in essence what I think what we saw last week. So the March for Life was on Friday, and then they had this protest in Washington, D.C. that same weekend, that Sunday. That is what you need to see. You are seeing Democrats and Republicans. You have a Kennedy standing up there, literally.
Yeah.
A Kennedy standing there, Robert Kennedy, to say that these vaccine mandates are wrong, these lockdowns are wrong. Look, you don't have to be a conservative to recognize and see how these Democrat liberal cities that are run by liberal mayors are being destroyed. And it's not just the death of a person, it's the death of a business, it's a death of a community, it's a death of people not being able to get their economy going because the mayors say you have to be vaccinated, you have to have or show your passport, you have to show that you were vaccinated. This is what they are doing to destroy these businesses. But why do they do it? They do it so they can continue to rule by fear. This is a rule by fear, not only Democrat Party, but a rule by fear regime. And I call it a regime because I truly believe that they think the only way that they can win next year is to continue to put people in fear of COVID. And that is where the people are finally revolting. We have changed the demographics in Florida to be more Republican. Literally, the party number of Republicans has now surpassed the number of Democrats. We never had that before. Even though Florida always seems like it's a very Republican state, we have actually surpassed the Democrats in voter registration. Why? Because people are fleeing these Northeast states, these liberal cities, to come to Florida. I asked tonight, there's a lady that she has a nail salon here, and I said, why did you move to Florida? And she said, for freedom. And then her husband, who also owns the business, so we can have freedom. That's what people want.
Hell yeah. Absolutely. But it's interesting, though. You go to some places like Miami or Orlando, and people are like super masked up still in a lot of these, like, you know, blue cities within Florida. It's just crazy how much fear there is in the world. So I know that Tampa recently, they as you just said, they became more registered Republican voters for the first time. Is that true? Am I quoting?
Well, Pinellas County did, but the entire state of Florida actually has.
That's awesome.
So it's awesome. But, you know, I think there was always a fear of what are all the people that are moving here? What's their voter registration? Are they Democrats? Are they liberals? Are they, you know, and I think that question's now been answered. And I always thought philosophically, it's just who do you align with? You're not going to move here if you have a governor that operates the freest state in America. You're not going to move here if you believe your kids should be wearing a mask to school 9 hours a day.
Right.
And so that is, in fact, what we're seeing with this voter registration. It's that, but it's also people who for years have been registered as Democrats and finally realized when COVID hit them and they actually realized how it hit their pocketbook. They may not have cared about politics or who's in office or anything like that. But once it hits your pocketbook and you have the ability to make a decision, that's when they decided to change parties.
Yeah, you know, you and Grayson here, I believe you guys sounds like you've been Republicans most of your life. Whereas Tara and I, we're part of the walk away movement. We're former liberal Democrats. And you know, we kind of bought into that narrative of social justice causes. So we're part of that movement now towards the right side. And now look what we're doing. We have a podcast.
It was really because we weren't paying attention. I mean, like I
weren't.
wasn't political until 2020. 2020 really forced a lot of people to be political and to pay attention to what was going on. And for me, that, you know, the moment I spent any small amount of time just reading beyond a headline into the body of a story, it was a no-brainer. This is just common sense.
Well said.
Yep, you're like a lot of young people. I was talking to a pharmaceutical rep and she's like, I never really cared. I didn't even know who the vice president was. But when COVID happened and I couldn't go into doctor's offices to distribute the drugs, I noticed that my life is now changing. My career has changed. I can't go see my friends. Once it starts hitting people that way, they begin to wake up. And that's exactly what's happened.
Do you think that like the Democrats, because they were getting away with so much with a lot of people that are just comply, that they pushed a little too far and now there's kind of this pushback? Because I know like the truckers, for example, there's rumors now, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but there's rumors that there's a convoy coming from LA. They're going to drive cross country to DC.
I heard about that.
To protest the mandates, to kind of mimic what's happening in Canada with the Freedom Convoy. Do you think that the Democrats and the left just kind of pushed too far?
I think the Democrats have pushed too far, but they're at the point of no return. They can't come back and be like, well, maybe we messed up. Look, I mean, I remember March of 2020 seeing Nancy Pelosi on TV say, I bow at the altar of Anthony Fauci. And that was all I really needed to know about where Anthony Fauci was going to take this country. And that's in essence what's happened. They have relied on everything Anthony Fauci has said, and Anthony Fauci has been completely political in this. And right now, I don't think that they can come back from it. They have to just dig even deeper. And they have to be so all in on vaccines, on passports, on mandates, even if they know it's killing businesses. Because instilling that fear in people, fear is a very motivating behavior, right? It's a very motivating and driving force that they can use to influence the next election. And that's what this is about.
I do want to say, though, just Amanda, and for the team here, just to appease our YouTube gods, Joe Biden won the election fair and square, and there is no evidence of any type of voter fraud in the 2020 election. Amanda, we have to say that just to make sure that we cover off our bases with the YouTube oligarchs. As you can imagine, they're on our channel a lot. Let's just say that. Let's talk about the flood, as we call, of, you could call it illegal immigrants,
illegal aliens,
undocumented migrants.
The evolution of the word from illegal aliens to, what is it, illegal immigrants to undocumented immigrants and now migrants.
And now to global citizens.
Global citizen.
Undocumented citizens? Weren't they calling that in like New York or something? Because when they gave people the right to vote?
Yeah. So, Amanda,
illegal aliens.
We've now watched New York sign a bill under this new mayor, Eric Adams, that they have, where they're giving 800,000 non-citizens in New York the right to vote in local elections. And what's crazy is that you only have to be in New York for 30 days to be considered eligible. So that means you could be there on a vacation and be eligible to vote in a local election. Do you think, because our theory, and I think a lot of people agree with this, the Democrats like loose borders and they like giving non-citizens voting rights because they're losing voters to the right side and they need to replace them with blue voters?
So my theory has always been that when I went to the border last July. And when I drove through 2 checkpoints, the Customs and Border Patrol agent asked me both times, "Are you a U.S. citizen?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Okay, have a nice day." They didn't ask for my ID. They didn't ask why I was driving into the state with out-of-state license plate, rental car. I mean, all the signs, right? All the signs. Never mind the fact that I could easily pass for being Hispanic, and they didn't ask for anything. Therein lies the problem, okay? When you have Mayorkas and from on high, Biden down to Mayorkas saying, look the other way, because that is 100% what's happening. When they say that and CBP agents are looking the other way, why are they doing that? If they can get the illegals into the state of Texas, give them amnesty, we will never have a Republican in the White House again. Period. Okay? That is what's at stake. So think about what they're doing so coy and so, in a clandestine way. They're just letting everyone in. And I'm telling you, because it happened to me, just letting everyone in, letting everyone in. They're going to find a way to give amnesty to them. And once they do that, just like you said, well, you don't have to be an American citizen to vote. Excuse me, when the hell did that happen? I mean, what is that about? Okay, you do that in New York, do that in Dallas, do that in Austin, do that in Houston. Oh, wow, look, all of a sudden, the state of Texas that we Republicans always rely on, the state of Texas is going to be delivered for Republicans, will no longer have Republicans dominating that state. It will become a Democrat state. And there is no way in the Electoral College map to make up those Electoral College votes.
I want to point out that this is more racial and less political, because it basically sounds like if these illegals are coming in and we're going to vote for Republicans would be just on board with it. And when I toured the border in Arizona with Congressman Paul Gosar, a lot of the Border Patrol agents, a lot of the local police for the border towns were Latino, and they have what's called La Raza, the race. And these people look out for their own family members, and when a lot of these illegals are coming over, they're the same race as themselves. So speaking with the local police in these border towns, they're all Hispanic. They don't want to go after illegal aliens because they are also Hispanic, and they only really report the ones who are not. It's very interesting and a very strange dynamic going on, that they're looking out for their own racial brothers while at the same time they're helping bring more in. And these are the people in the institutions, in the Border Patrol and the local police down on the border.
Yeah, that's crazy if that's true. I've never been to the border before. Tara, have you been there before?
Not yet. I'd like to go over to Yuma sometime, though. So I'll plan that out with Grayson and a couple other colleagues that are planning to go. And hopefully
it's a very complicated situation what's going on down there. So it's more than just Republicans and Democrats. There's a very strong racial component to what's happening.
Amanda, I'm actually Mexican by blood. I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico, but I was adopted at birth by a Jewish family. That's one of the reasons why I'm, pro-life now, because I was adopted. But I should go down there and see, what kind of reaction I get, since I am, I do match the ethnicity of a lot of the migrants, because there are a lot of South American migrants coming up through our southern border. Could be an interesting video for YouTube.
Yeah, for sure.
And
and think back to what happened in, I think it was last March. There were elections for the first time in these border towns on the lower Rio Grande Valley. You had, for the first time, a Republican mayor was elected in like 28 years.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
So a lot of it's not even just the immigration policies or lack thereof. It's the failed policies that are impacting these communities in the lower Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's it's good to see these people are obviously, voting red now. Tara, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just thinking to Grayson's trip to Yuma, because he's gone several times, and you've seen the impact that on these border towns, the impact that's had on Yuma. Can you talk through like some of the experiences you had there and how it's changed Yuma itself?
Well, my interview with the lieutenant was very interesting. At one point, we did an hour-long interview. He said, we don't have a lot of crime here because we don't have a lot of diversity. And he expanded on that, saying that pretty much everybody here is Latino, and we all have Latino culture. I thought that was very interesting, that not having diversity is the reason why they don't have a lot of crime, because Yuma is one of the 4th safest cities in Arizona. So it's just, to me, it's very strange that there's such a strong racial component to Latinos and how they look out for each other. And with Dr. Gosar going down there and talking with all of them and what he's doing in Congress, I think there's a lot of support beyond, like beyond the whole racial component. There's a lot of support from Latinos who are already here that are legal immigrants to have a 10-year moratorium on immigration, where it's not just we stop the flow of illegal aliens, but we also stop the flow of legal immigrants, because they're seeing that a lot of the people who have come in are using our legal immigration system to bring in their family members, their mothers, fathers, grandfathers, their children, their uncles, their cousins, pretty much everybody. And essentially it's destroying their communities. They're saying, you know what, Papa Jose, we love you, but you got to stay in Mexico. And you come in here, we can't take care of everybody. And Papa Jose's like, just do the immigration paperwork. You're legal.
Yeah, but okay, what did Joe Biden say when he campaigned? Oh, Trump's such a jerk. He's, he won't be humanitarian. Okay, well, this is what humanitarian gets you. You get people who what are they trying to do? They're trying to bring them through. And so this is what in essence is happening because of what Joe Biden campaigned on. And, people again said, we're not humanitarian, so we're going to have Joe Biden. And look what it's done. It's destroying our country. We're an open border country thanks to Joe Biden.
Yep. And we want to go protect Ukraine's borders now. So that's insanity. It's pretty obvious Joe Biden is not pro-America. And I like that America is benevolent. We are humanitarian. And for decades, we have opened our doors to the world to bring people in and give them a better life. And it comes to a point of where we got to say, you know what, no more. We got to take care of our own home. Because if we don't have the ability to take care of our own people, how are we going to take care of all these other people? The ability for benevolence just disappears.
Well said. I agree. I want to jump over to critical race theory. This is a topic that I think we think about a lot. I'm Mexican, as we spoke about. Tara here is mixed race. She's Polish and Filipina. You, Amanda, you are Iranian. Grayson here is white.
Yeah, so critical race theory pretty much only applies to me. It's a very anti-white, and I think a lot of people are now beginning to say that because it's not just racist, it's specifically anti-white.
Not only is it anti-white, but it's making it's oppressed versus the oppressor.
Well, who is the oppressor in critical race theory?
I don't actually think it's anti-white. I think it's anti everything if you think about it, right? So I was in AP chemistry, okay? Mm-hmm. And then my lab partner in AP chemistry was an African-American guy. He was very smart. He ended up playing in the NFL for a decade and played with Tom Brady at University of Michigan.
That's really cool.
Okay, but we both advanced to AP chemistry. But according to CRT, we should not teach those advanced level science and math classes because they hurt people like my lab partner. They hurt people like me. If you're brown or you're black, you're actually going to be adversely impacted by these high level math and science classes. So let's not teach them anymore. So who does that actually help? I think that helps China. I think that is like music to their ears when they're like, oh, they're not going to teach math and science at advanced levels. Awesome. Okay, that's great. I mean, it is so stupid. And then the worst part, when I think of Congressman Byron Donald said this on Meet the Press one morning when he was talking about how he's African-American, his wife and the mother of his children is white. So is she the oppressor because she's white? So what does that make the kids?
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. All these these racial mental games that they're playing, this labeling. It really frustrates me. I mean, you said it best. I was reading the story that they were saying that like young kids, there are children that are really good at math, but if they learn calculus, it makes those that can't learn it because they're not, maybe they don't get math as well, feel stupid. So then no one should learn calculus.
That's why we're having participation awards these days.
Yeah, and then they did another survey where they asked children what they want to be when they grow up. In U.S., the number one future job that these kids want is a YouTuber.
Yeah, this job. They want our jobs.
They want this job, which, by the way, kids, doesn't pay a lot of money. But if you go to China and ask their kids what they want to be when they grow up, number one answer is an astronaut. That's crazy to me that we want to be YouTubers here. They want to be astronauts. That right there, to me, says the direction that our countries are headed in the next 50 years if we don't get this shit back on track.
Well, therein lies the problem is that we glorify being, on camera, in front of camera. And what we don't glorify, what we don't say is good is, whether it's being an astronaut, being a doctor, being even a plumber or a welder or anything. I mean, we focus on things that we shouldn't be focused on when what we should be doing is teaching our kids the importance of these skills, but not when in schools they're saying you don't have to learn this because it's going to be hard for you to learn this. Calculus is hard, so you shouldn't learn it. That's the wrong approach. And that's really not the America I grew up in. I know I'm probably a lot older than you guys, but in America, it wasn't like that. Now it is because, to Tara's point, everyone has to get a participation award. People, that's not the way the real world operates. And we need to stop teaching kids to live in this fantasy world.
That's right. Yeah, I think that we need to highlight, more people like you who, you have this story coming to America. Your family made it. Your dad became a surgeon twice, it sounds like. You, have a great career as an attorney. You've done stuff with the government. Now you're running for Congress. I mean, these are the kind of people that we need to highlight. Hey, Tara, could you pull this article up real quick on my screen? I know it's a little bit of a side note, but it's people like you, Amanda Makki, and it's people like this guy here that we need to be promoting and highlighting. Check this out. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy named Johnny Kim. He's a Navy SEAL sniper, a Harvard doctor, and a NASA astronaut. I mean, this guy right here is, to me, what America is all about.
Absolutely. And what you can be, what you can aspire to be, and you can actually be, because his last name of Kim doesn't matter.
Exactly. He's just as American as any of us here are. And I believe he's probably Korean American because his last name is Kim. But what a great story this guy has. What a great story, obviously you have. I know that you have another podcast today. You've been on the news a lot lately, it looks like. I looked at your website. And you made a lot of interesting appearances. What are some of the channels that you've been on so far?
I do a lot of Newsmax. I like to really make sure that people understand that conservatives come in all shapes and colors, and really talk about conservative issues and bring a conservative perspective. So I do a lot of Newsmax. Was on Fox when we were at the March for Life rally. Last week when we met, and really that Dobbs case, we never got to talk about it. So real quickly, if I can,
please.
The person who I mentioned, I talked about a friend, a personal story about him and his partner. They had a baby. These are well-to-do, successful people. And they are in their 40s, and the woman had a baby. I think she was in her 30s, but they had a baby, and the baby's name was Baby Moon. And one day she left to go visit her family, apparently a very leftist, socialist type family, and she never returned his calls again. He could never get in touch with her, and you can imagine what a father is going through. Where is she? What's going on? And ultimately, he found out that she had aborted the child at 23 weeks. And it's horrible. And he wasn't even given the decency of being notified of this, to be there, because he could have stopped it. That's the important point. He could have stopped it. He could have said, I will be, you can sign over the rights. I will take care of this child. He has 5 children, and he wanted a 6th, and Moon would have been that 6th child. And it didn't happen because we're so eager to glorify abortions in this country. And there are so many YouTube channels that will talk about, like, oh, have you had an abortion? Let me guess if you've had one. I mean, there's literally like game shows about this. It's disgusting behavior. But the worst part about this is that the United States Supreme Court in 1992, in the Planned Parenthood v. Casey case, when Planned Parenthood sued the state of Pennsylvania, this came from that case that said fathers do not have a right to be notified. And an abortion can occur without their consent, without them knowing. And that's the situation that 22 million men have found themselves in since the landmark Roe v. Wade decision in 1973.
Yeah, it's
horrible, and it's tragic. And I'm glad that you're going to have Shane on to talk about his experience.
We really have the Supreme Court since the 1970s dictating the laws of the land in many ways. And I want to point out, for abortion in China with the one-child policy is pretty widespread, but China, the CCP, has never glorified abortion, and culturally it's something shameful that nobody really wants. So there's definitely something evil going on here in the United States with that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like I see abortion porn on my TikTok, and I'm like, what the hell is this shit? There were 2 things that there's a case before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will be deciding that hopefully by June. I think at the it would be by June before the term ends. But really important case that could change a lot of this. So keep those justices in your prayers that they make the right decision. Yeah, we definitely need to save these babies. Yeah. 2 things I wanted to bring up, because I know we got a few minutes left. You have the most cash on hand of any Republican in the race as well, right? Is that a fact check?
Yes. So tell you a little bit about my race. Running in Florida's 13th congressional district. that is about 80% of Pinellas County.
Nice.
Pinellas County, cities like Seminole, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Largo. Basically, what we've done is we've been able to get the endorsements of basically all the Republican mayors in Pinellas County. And that is a really important thing because those endorsements are of mayors that people see in their local communities. And these mayors are going to go out with me in the communities, and we're going to door knock, and we're going to get to every voter, and we're going to talk with them about why this election is so important. There is so much at stake for our country. But to answer your question, yes, we lead in cash on hand advantage. And the reason that's really important is because I got in this race really kind of late after others had gotten in this race. So to be able to have that cash on hand advantage, one, it shows discipline, that you're not blowing through your money. And two, it shows that you're working hard to raise that money without doing a lot of these splits, as you've seen, where you get an email and that email that you give $5 or $10 ends up that person has to give 80% of it to a vendor. And we've been very disciplined in how we've raised money. We've done it the old fashioned way, calling and dialing for dollars and asking people to support our efforts. This is an open seat. Charlie Crist currently holds the seat. He's running for governor. Why? I don't know, but he is. This is an open seat, and it is our opportunity to take back this seat after 4 decades that it was held by Republicans. We need it back. We need to regain control.
Have you been endorsed by President Trump?
I have not. I would love to have his endorsement, love to have the opportunity to talk with him. I'm the only candidate in this race who has done anything to help the president, as we discussed the recount in Wisconsin. So I'd really be grateful to have his support if he's listening.
I would love. I think
he's a big fan. He's a big fan of the program, so I think he's listening.
Yeah. Yeah, the T&A, the T stands for Trump and Adam Show. So Tara's just the tech person here. And we have 2 minutes left, so let's end on this last question. If we can focus, that's not the question, that's a sentence. Why is it important for us to go after the Democrats in this? Why is this seat important in 2022? What kind of people need to get these seats for this, with the right experience?
This seat is really important because Pinellas is the bellwether for the country. So come 2024, look at what happens on election night in Pinellas County, because that's where the country is going to be.
Oh, it's a bellwether? County, that's so cool. I didn't know that.
Pinellas County has the distinction of having picked the president every 4 years since 1980. Okay, so 40 years. They've picked the president except for 1 year, and that was 2000 when Pinellas County went for Al Gore. So they have gone back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I think this is largely a reflection of those Rust Belt states, those really important battleground states. Those folks from Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, where do they retire? They retire on the west coast of Florida, and a lot of them are here in Pinellas County. So Pinellas County is really the bellwether. Why is it important that we win this seat? It's important that we do because if you look at what happened in the mayor's race here in St. Petersburg in 2017, Barack Obama came here to campaign for a mayor of a town of 250,000 people. This is very important for the presidency. And so we need to make sure that we have a Republican in office who will represent the conservative values and be one of the 5 seats we need to take back Congress in 2022.
Awesome. Well said. Well, Amanda, I know you have to go to your next podcast. We really loved having you on our show. It was awesome to
very well spoken and articulate. Very intelligent woman.
That's right.
Thank
obviously,
you.
As we get closer to election season, we would love to have you on the show again. And if there's anything that we can do, whether it's coming to some of your events and vlogging or blogging the experience, we'd love to be there to help you out, in Florida somewhere. So thank you again for spending time with us.
Very kind of you. Thank you very much. I will take you up on your offers, your generous offers. And I'm really glad that you're going to have Shane on to talk about something that isn't spoken about, and that is the father's role in saving a child's life, because they're not given that. They're not given that right now, and it's a very sad situation for our country that we're allowing for this.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate you being here. And as always, guys, this episode is going to be available on Adam Francisco, Polish American Brotherhood, Pure Politics,
American Grayson. Now I renamed the channel so
American
we can.
Grayson.
Yeah,
and also it's going to be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to your podcasts. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Let's go, Brandon. Be free, my sheeple. See you tomorrow.